Thank you. And first of all, it's impressive to see the growth of this community in just 1 year. And thank you especially, Marius, for your effort in this. But maybe this statement is a no-brainer for most of you, but I wanted to take it for my keynote and give some arguments, because the counter-arguments come again and again these days from people who don't know or people who want to influence someone else. And I especially use the term trustworthiness compared to trust and security, because that's the reason, that's the state we want to reach. We want to get reasons to trust our products, our software. And maybe you know we are in the context of encryption products. As SecureNet, we build products for protecting state secrets. And that way, we need a lot of trustworthiness, a lot of security in the products. And so we decided at the very beginning to use open source because it has some advantages. I will come to that later on. But it's a little bit comparable to the technology we want to protect in our products, namely cryptography, encrypting messages in a way that nobody else can read it. And thinking back 50 years or so, this technology, cryptography, was a secret technology. Only a few people knew what's about it. Others didn't knew that it eventually exists at all. And in the 70s or so, this technology came to the light. It was a research topic, and new crypto mechanisms came up, and so cryptography became a very open, a very public part of science and technology. And when we look at the way new cryptography is developed, new algorithms are developed, it's a very open process. Everybody can look at it. And so to say, the statement that was given for that security by obscurity is gone nowadays. So formerly, cryptography, or the way how messages were encrypted, was kept secret, but nobody knew how it worked, and nobody knew if it's secure. And so I think the same principle has to apply to software, to the way how cryptography is implemented, and all the things around the operating system and the management systems and so on. But nowadays there are a lot of myths around the security risk of open source. So some people say open source is insecure. And why they claim it? Because it's of bad quality, one argument. That might be true for some. That might be not. That is not true for some other projects. As we know, a lot of operational infrastructures around the world are running on open source. So when we look at Linux, for instance, it's around 40 years, almost 35 years. It's really a bulletproof technology. We cannot say it's bad quality. But there are, of course, projects that are of bad quality, and we have to figure out what project is good, what project is bad. Untested, some variation of that argument. So, of course, there are different ways of testing open source software, and there might also be projects and software out there that is not very well tested. But there is also software that is well tested. So the same with commercial software, of course. You have bad software, you have good software. So this is not a single argument for open source. There's another argument, it depends on single enthusiasts. And that's really true. There are a lot of projects out there that are really depending on single engaged persons that do it in their spare time sometimes. So I think it's very important to support open source projects, to not only consume open source, but to also contribute to open source for all of you that use open source in your daily work, in your products, in your offerings, please feel free to contribute to projects and to feedback and to give, to form a community. So open source is a community-based approach. It's not a single person effort. The last argument, it's undermined by Chinese, Russian, North Korean, US, whatever you name it, hackers, intentionally introducing backdoors or vulnerabilities. You don't know, might be, but you even also don't know for commercial software, for closed source software. And the difference is you cannot check, you cannot validate. And then we come to the arguments against these arguments. So why do we believe open source is always better than closed source when it comes to security and trustworthiness? So the first and foremost argument, of course, is transparency. What I said, it can be undermined here and there, but you have the chance to look at it, to inspect the software, to put it into your own architectures and evaluate the things much better than with closed source software. And it's even from the architecture to code, to binary, to the ops. So there are some initiatives or programs from big vendors providing insights into source code to, for instance, governments. I know about some programs. Microsoft has offered source code inspection to BSI, to name it. But of course, that's a kind of a fig leaf argument. You can look at some source code. You don't know how it goes into a binary, if this is the source code that it's compiled into a real binary. So just looking at the source code for 4 weeks isn't a good argument. The second one, flexibility. Of course, I want to use open source as much as it can do from what it brings. But on the other hand, sometimes I have some requirements that it's not fulfilled by this open source, and I can improve it. I can build additional things directly in the source code to fulfill my requirements and bring it back to the community. So one example, we are very much engaged in a key management project called StrongSwan that was not capable of post-quantum cryptography before the year before last year, I think. Last year, I don't know exactly, but we actively engaged into enhancing this product with post-quantum cryptography because there is a demand for it in the next 5 years. There is a requirement from EU, and there are standardization procedures and certification procedures requiring post-quantum cryptography. And we have implemented into StrongSwan and provided it to the community. Last but not least, innovation and functionality. Of course, if we want to build a security product, we need not only security, because security alone is useless. You need functionality, which is quite hard sometimes from if customers demand for functionality and you have to provide it in a secure way. But the argument is there is so much functionality out there in open source projects, you cannot build on your own. You don't want to build on your own to provide an user experience, to provide enough functionality to your customers. You just want to make it secure. So we are engaged in the open source community with a lot of projects, and Marius already mentioned we lately released the SCL project into the Alaska context, so feel free to build it and use it in your products. And of course we are focused on specifics in our product environment, but we want to also contribute to these projects. There is also some arguments about products and open source, and so my statement, mostly open source is not a product by itself, but it's a business case to make a product out of it, because of the quality things I mentioned. You have to look at test procedures of integration and so on, and I think it's a good value you can provide as a company to your customers to make open source usable in a specific way, in a product, in a service, and so on. Talking about the quality things, I know about initiatives or thoughts at Zendis Open Code that they want to provide some kind of scoring, of quality scoring and security scoring. We work with them together to figure out if there can be some more of a scoring system on open source projects, if this is of good quality, of less good quality, and if our patches are provided and so on. And this is even more important looking at coming regulations like the Cyber Resilience Act, which requires vendors to provide a certain patch level to their products. And so there was some discussion about open source, if this could be if this is good or bad for open source. I think it's good because it requires to think about quality measures and security measures from the scratch. And finally, we heard about digital sovereignty. Open source is imperative to digital sovereignty, but it's a different story. Thank you.
Thank you, Karl Martius. Now we will start with some technical deep dive.